know, this is an exciting time and space for the state of Illinois relative to manufacturing. We've always been a very strong center of excellence for manufacturing in a variety of different sectors. You know, it's interesting, every time there's a crisis in this world or this country, it produces all kinds of new innovation. And certainly we saw that during the pandemic with the explosion of e-commerce. And grandma who never used a computer before now gets all her groceries online. The same applies to the climate problem that we have in this world. It's a big charge, excuse the pun, behind the electrification of our transportation world. And Illinois, as I said earlier, and you heard from the prior speakers, and I want to thank Dr. Green for her leadership, not just at the university, but in the economic development space. Congresswoman Kelly for her leadership on the Hill, making sure that Illinois always gets more than their due when it comes to programs and projects, underscored and underfed, if you will, and sometimes not overfed, unfortunately, by the federal government. And then Mark Denzler's here from the Illinois Manufacturers Group. All of these are important leaders for the future economy of Will County. I'm happy, my name's John Grueling, by the way. I spent 22 years running the Will County Center for Economic Development, and today I'm doing a little consulting, and I'm very happy to be a chairman of the Supply Chain Institute and Business Incubator here at GSU. Thanks for all your support, June, and congratulations on your retirement. You will be missed. And Reggie Greenwood as well has been a big help in all of this. So this panel is going to talk about the manufacturing side of EV as it relates to Illinois. I don't have time to give wonderful bios and explanations of what all these people do and their companies. I'm relying on your ability to read and look at the brochure to get that information. But we have four distinguished innovators here, very excited. Ryan Walsh with a company called Valkyrie. We have Joe Day with Li-Cycle. Patrick Harity with MyJack, and Brian Robb with Lion Electric. Thank you. So the format here will be each speaker will give a few moments of explanation about themselves and their company and what they're doing in the EV space in Illinois, and then we'll have time for a few questions from the podium, and then we'll take it from there. So I'm going to introduce Ryan first.
Hey everybody, I'm Ryan Welsh. I'm the CEO and founder of Valkyrie. We build automated drone ports and fully autonomous point-to-point logistics solutions.
Next slide.
So I got my first exposure to drones in Afghanistan when I deployed from 05, 06, and 07. And so that was really where drones were starting to enter the battlefield, and I saw the rapid innovation that was happening in them. After I had gotten out a few years later, I started looking at it from a commercial perspective. And so we saw the innovation was really needed on the infrastructure side. So we started filing patent applications and working on prototypes back in 2013. And we founded Valkyrie in 2017 once we realized we had a very large protectable market. So we're up to 30 patents now, 33 pending. I'm lead inventor on 29 of those granted patents. So kind of found my way into this industry. And since then I've gone on to serve with a couple of different regulatory advisories, different companies in drones and batteries. And so kind of polished out a well-rounded experience in robotics and innovation autonomy. Slide, please.
Can all of you hear us in the back? You okay? Good. Sorry.
Sure. So if you could click that video real quick, please. That picture. Hopefully it plays. Fingers crossed. Perfect. Click that little skip button right there, sorry. At the bottom right, skip ad right there. Bottom, over.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's my advertisement. I don't want to skip that.
Full screen it if you would. Bottom right. So this person got an order from a customer. They're going to go up and wave their phone. Only their locker opens, and they're going to place the package in. Very simple. And so that's going to get pulled onto an elevator and brought up to the drone. Now, the drone is doing an airspace check through traffic management, and once it gets approved, it flies autonomously to the receiving point. That could be a few miles. We have some drones that can go a couple dozen miles. So this one's coming in. It does an authentication and verification, which is really important to make sure there's no bad actors in the chain. It's then going to do a precision landing, and it gets centered very quickly. The package drops. It goes into an elevator. It's sorted. It's placed in the locker, and then this person gets a notification. They go and wave their phone, and only their locker opens. So there's a number of different applications we're working on, from food delivery to medical delivery, industrial, ship to shore, and all kinds of things. It takes back off and goes about its day. And so we still have somebody that's overseeing the flight per FAA guidelines, but that was happening entirely autonomously. So once you place that order and it gets the drone, nobody controls anything else in the process. I think top left tab. Just tab, click the tab if you would.
I'm sorry. Here.
Next one, left. Perfect.
All right.
And we just need to scroll down a couple. So this is all controlled through our app. We can front face it for a customer, or it's API driven. A lot of our big Fortune 500 customers obviously don't want their customers jumping off of their app and onto ours, and so we plug our APIs right in, so you can order a drone if it's available for you for delivery right from your local fast food app or a large retailer. Next slide, please. Up, one more up. So, as I mentioned, we've been working on this since 2013, 10 years. We recently acquired a competitor in the UK. We've done, this number actually is a little bit dated. We're, I think, over 6,500 flights now. We just signed a licensing agreement in Guam, Palau, the Mariana Islands, and Ghana, and we're in discussions with 25 more, so we're rapidly expanding our licensing. But we've deployed systems from the South Pacific to Europe already, so we're already on 3 continents, soon to be 4, and we're expanding very significantly and seeing pretty rapid growth. So we're really excited about the prospects of electric vehicles and autonomous vehicles in the state. All right. Questions?
Okay, we'll cover that. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Thank you for that. I don't know, I've never seen a drone land on a mailbox before, but now you've seen it. Joe, thank you. Okay, Joe Day with Li-Cycle. Joe.
Morning, everybody. I'm Joe Day. I'm commercial manager from Li-Cycle. And before I get started, just wanted to thank John and Craig, Reggie, and Lisa for recruiting me to speak today. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Li-Cycle and what our role is in the supply chain in terms of being a lithium-ion battery recycler. And I'll dive right in here, and to repeat a theme that we've heard a couple times already today, there is a surge happening in terms of electrification across a number of industries, e-mobility being a big one. And this chart I thought was a good one, where we've already seen over the last few years the industry double and triple in terms of electric vehicles hitting the road. And as Congresswoman Kelly said earlier, by the year 2030, we're looking at half the vehicles being sold in the U.S. being electric. So with that, there's an enormous opportunity, but also an enormous crisis that could be emerging around the amount of material that needs to be recycled, and then from that, that would need to be sourced for new battery manufacturing. This chart here just gives a little background in terms of what we're seeing so far in the recycling industry, in terms of lithium batteries in particular. A lot of it so far is coming from manufacturing scrap, but then you notice that the next two from left to right there are transportation and energy storage systems. And it was great to see in Lisa's presentation how we're looking at not only e-mobility, but also stationary energy storage in terms of what Illinois is really getting after in terms of resourcing moving ahead here. Here's the crisis part, is the sourcing of materials necessary for electric vehicles and the batteries that go within. The three critical metals that are in those batteries are lithium, nickel, and cobalt. Cobalt's a real problem because our primary source of that material is currently the Democratic Republic of Congo, where there are deplorable working conditions. There are books being written about it, and it's becoming more and more well documented. So the more that we can domesticate that supply chain so that we're not seeing deficits like this moving forward. And we were talking about affordability of EVs earlier. I think that the fifth graders that were talking about it in their letter. It's real, and a big part of the expense of an electric vehicle is the battery itself. The more difficult it is for us to source those metals that go into those batteries, the more expensive those vehicles are going to continue to be. So the more we domesticate that supply chain, make those metals accessible, rather than what you see here, where again, lion's share of that cobalt is coming from Congo, nickel, from places like Russia, lithium all over the world, but you don't see the U.S. up there. So we need to domesticate that supply chain, and that's what we're looking at doing at Lifecycle, is by putting those metals back into the supply chain through our recycling process safely and sustainably. And we do that through what we're calling a spoke and hub process. So it's not hub and spoke, but it's the reverse. It's reverse logistics, where we have spoke locations which will shred batteries anywhere between consumer batteries all the way on up to large packs that are in vehicles and at energy storage sites. Produces what's called black mass, and then that one will go into our hub location in New York State, where that'll be a refinery, and those metals then will be taken from that black mass derivative and then put back into the supply chain as battery grade material. So as we continue to grow, we're really excited about what the opportunity in the state of Illinois might be as we continue to further commercialize and operationalize what we're doing at Lifecycle. So thank you.
Good morning. Great day to be in the Southland. I'm Pat Harity from MyJack Products, part of the Lanco Group, who's been a proud resident of the Southland. We've been around for some 70 years, and we've been reimagining ourselves from day one to today. 1972, we moved to Hazel Crest, and that's been our home since then. Okay. Which one am I hitting for the arrows? All right. So I've been asked to talk about our green energy initiatives. For about 20 years, we've been involved with green energy and transformation. What we have done was taken large intermodal cranes and removed the 1,000 horsepower engine, replaced it with a battery set which powers the crane, and a 150 horsepower diesel engine generator which repowers the battery. So we've been around this for a number of years, but we keep getting pushed by our industry, particularly in California. By 2030, we have to have zero emissions. So that's a huge task for our industry. Typically, our cranes last 15 or 20 years, so no one's going to spend the CapEx today with 6 years remaining on the usefulness of that crane. It has to be repowered and it has to go zero. This is kind of the savings that we've recognized on the products that we put out there till now, with some 70% reduction in fuel cost. I mean, from an end user's perspective, when they were getting some grant funding from the local governments to convert to this, this positive energy resource, and in addition to getting all the benefits of the emissions, at $5 diesel, you're saving 70%, and the old engine consumed 10 gallons of diesel an hour. So the ROI was like less than 6 months for doing these conversions. Everyone was happy. So today, our future is going to a hydrogen, and with hydrogen, that's the only way we can go to a zero emission. If anyone's drove down I-80 around Kesey Avenue, you see this big monster sticking out. It's able to stack loaded containers 6 high and 7 wide. So this is us as a private company using private dollars to invest in the future. This is the kind of layout of the battery on the left side, the current diesel engine on the right side, again, giving all those existing reductions, but we're replacing that engine with a hydrogen fuel cell. And so the hydrogen fuel cell is going to do the same thing. It's 80 kW, and it's going to repower those batteries. And so we have been looking at battery suppliers and hydrogen suppliers over the last 18 months. We've decided to go with Hyundai fuel cell. Big reason we decided to go with Hyundai is that they fit our power requirement, but in addition, they have about 30,000 vehicles running worldwide with hydrogen. So we really like their experience. We're working with an integrator called US Hybrid. I probably went too fast here. US Hybrid is based out of California, and they are involved with doing integrations. So they're working currently within the port environment. They also work within the transportation bus environment in putting hybrid systems together. So this is new for us. We expect to have the first hydrogen-powered rubber-tired gantry crane operating at our facility in the fourth quarter. And this is the only 100% US-built rubber-tired gantry crane in the United States. So we're going to be totally green and looking forward to a bright future. One other thing. Big shout out to Reggie Greenwood. This guy is just amazing. You're very fortunate to have him representing you for all the jobs that he's created in the Southland.
You can pay him after the meeting, Reggie. Oh, he did already, yes. Okay, our last speaker, before we get into some questions, is with Lion Electric, Mr. Brian Robb, and fortunately for him, I lost his slides, so I don't have to screw this up. So, Brian.
That's fine. Thanks so much, everybody. So for those of you who don't know who we are, Lion Electric, we are about 45 minutes straight west of here, our factory in Joliet. We are an original equipment manufacturer of electric vehicles, specifically EV school buses, and we're just starting to come online for class 5, 6, 7, 8 trucks. And we are very, very fortunate to be in Will County. And there was many reasons that I can't go over in 5 minutes why we chose Will County. But I always kind of say it really is kind of the infrastructure. And I'm very familiar with the territory. I worked in the area for a long time for a member of Congress of that area. And it was a huge deal when Lion chose Will County. And we can get manufacturing and good jobs and clean jobs to the county and to the Chicagoland area and really get that kind of clean energy manufacturing renaissance going, very much spurred on by the Pritzker administration, by support on the federal levels, the state levels, all the way, the Will County Center for Economic Development. I mean, you name it. JJC, I mean, there's so many to name. It's a good problem to have. I always tell people when we're down there, we're very lucky to have the infrastructure that we have. And 30 miles to the north of us, we have the world's leading battery research facility in Argonne National Lab. 2 miles to the east of us, we have Joliet Junior College, and when you heard with Congresswoman Robin Kelly and a few others, we're very lucky to have a lot of congressional reps, state reps, the governor, a very, very supportive team. It really is kind of like it takes a community type deal, and we're very, very lucky to have that much infrastructure where we are, and to really kind of prop this thing up as it's growing. I mean, it is blowing up so fast at this point that, I think it was like 2% of vehicles on the road roughly were EVs maybe about 5, 6, 7 years ago. And it's up to roughly about 7% now. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but that's huge in a 5-year span. And we're predicted to skyrocket and continue to grow in the next 10 years. And a lot of that is because of the community support and the congressional and state support that we have. So we're very, very happy to be here. And I'm biased. I'm from DuPage County, so I'm like, hey, Illinois is the best place ever to have Chicago specifically as an EV hub of the Midwest, and we are well on our way to making that happen. And our factory actually is opening on July 21st. So Reggie, if I forgot to send you the invite, I got to send you the invite. But yeah, we're thrilled to be here, and happy to answer any questions later on.
The success that the state has had with companies like Lion and others as we really explode into this new electric vehicle sector is really critical, and we have to maintain that momentum. So based on your experience, Ryan, relative to your particular business, what do you see as the biggest challenges that you are faced with in moving your company to more success?
So there's a couple that stand out. One, all of the current legislation in Illinois, if you look at electric vehicles, it's really based for ground vehicles. Advanced air mobility, drones, they're not really taken into account, even though they have a very fast adoption rate coming that we're seeing already, and they're going to make up a large sector of the electric vehicle market overall. So that whole portion being removed is a bit of something I'd like to address. The other is there's several states that are really taking advantage of drawing companies in through economic incentives, and all of the things that we've done for the ground vehicle market, we're not doing for advanced air mobility. And so other states, South Dakota, Michigan, South Carolina, New York, Ohio, they're starting to really take a lot of the leading companies, and we saw it with Lion, Rivian, a lot of these lead manufacturers in the ground vehicles. We're losing that ground on the air side, so I'd like to see that change.
Good. Tee that up for a panel we'll hear from later in the program. Same person, different question. Your manufacturing facility is in Lombard.
Correct, yes.
So you obviously see some good things about being in Illinois. Share with us what those are.
Without question. We produce the #2 most computer science graduates in the country. We have some of the top tier engineering schools in the world. The #1 and 2 business school are in Chicago. So as far as talent goes, there's no place on this planet. The Silicon Valley model is starting to die out a little bit, and the whole apps and software is not where Industry 4.0's revolution is coming. It's going to be hardware, and manufacturing is going to be the backbone of that. So being in the logistics capital of the world and being in such a brain power factory, so to speak, amazing schools like GSU and all of the groups that are coming together for like the IIN. That's really where we see the biggest draw for Illinois.
Great, fantastic. Joe, when I burn out my batteries in my flashlight, can I bring them to you? No, I'm kidding. So your industry, what are some of the challenges that you're faced with today?
Sure. So I will, I guess, pivot from that question to a question to the audience. How many people in the audience, by show of hands, knew that battery recycling was so important to the supply chain?
All right.
Okay, that's much more than I thought, so good for the audience here. But there were some hands that didn't go up, so I would say the awareness part of it is really huge. And then from a commercial perspective, safety and cost effectiveness as well. What I mean by cost effectiveness is aggregation of material, rather than your scenario there, John, where you have a flashlight battery and can you ship that to us? No, thank you. But if you can get that to an aggregator who can ship us a truckload, then yes, that'd be way more cost effective and safer than when we're working with professionals then who know how to safely package it and get it to our facilities.
Great, thank you. In terms of Illinois, what are the advantages of your firm doing business here?
So it's interesting. My executive team at Lifecycle, I think, looks at Illinois as a place that's difficult to do business in, but Lisa's presentation was compelling, and I might hit you up to maybe present to our team here in the near future so that the people that make those decisions for the company in terms of where we set up our recycling facilities and where we really put our resources into, where Illinois then could be viewed as something along the lines of like a Michigan, Ohio, or even Indiana, which I think we're sort of leaning towards at this point. So yeah, I think that there's a certain reputation that Illinois would need to overcome, but some of the statistics looked very promising in Lisa's presentation.
Well, and as you know, as you've learned and others hopefully in the room learned today, the leadership is very committed to this. And we're all doing this kind of for the first time. So if there's things that we can do better, if there's things in your industry that you need to be more successful in Illinois, Let's get that message to the right people.
Absolutely. And one thing I'll add to that is we go to where the batteries are coming from, whether those are, that is coming from manufacturing scrap, like I showed in my presentation, or EV adoption. So it doesn't work the other way around. It's not like, the batteries are going to come because we set up a facility somewhere. So, the more that batteries are manufactured and the more, just resources in the state of Illinois that go into electrification and the EV market in particular, the more appealing that this region will become for us.
Good. Patrick, in terms of MyJack, you're a forever Illinois company. How do we keep you that way?
Yeah, well, two observations from me, and obviously it's been tough for everybody in the supply chain over the last, 3-4 years, but even more importantly, I would say for the first 50 years of the company, a car never left the parking lot. And in the last 20, 15 years, 10 years, 5 for sure, you can't keep one in there. And so a lot of that has to do with institutional knowledge, leaving the building with retirement. A lot of that has to do with us being a real solid company with great employees and people wanting them. So that's kind of been a twofold challenge for us for sure. And then secondly, looking at hydrogen specifically, is the fueling possibilities for hydrogen. There is none in the Illinois and Chicagoland area. There's a lot of projects that are in the books, some exciting things I read about with taking some power from the nuclear plants and creating clean hydrogen. That's very exciting. But 18 months when I looked into this, and to my distinct surprise, I was going to have to bring in hydrogen from West Virginia or something.
Right.
It's just crazy. So now it looks like it's getting a little better on small quantities that we can get from Air Products and some local companies, but it's still very expensive. That's going to be a long-term challenge for the industry, is how are you going to fuel these clean vehicles?
Thank you, Patrick. And Brian, you've already spoken about some of the pluses and some of the challenges. The workforce question for you. How satisfied are you with the Illinois workforce and the institutions that are getting them ready for your industry sector?
Yeah, it's a huge deal, and we're very satisfied. I mean, like I said, we're very fortunate to have. I mean, the nation's I can't say oldest. JJC is not the oldest. They are the first community college. We're very lucky to have them next door to us, and I know Kurt somewhere. He's around here. Kurt Ward and JJC's automotive program that is starting to turn over to EVs. That's a huge deal, and when you see community colleges like JJC, or when you're, where we are right now at Governor State, starting to move in that workforce towards electric vehicles and clean energy manufacturing, that is a really big deal, because that means that there is a tangible commitment, not only from them, but from us, to work in the community together in tandem and provide a really sustainable pipeline for workforce development, which is very important in the collar counties and for Chicago's kind of manufacturing. If we're going to have that renaissance that we're all kind of talking about, that is a huge part of it, is to make sure that workforce development is not only viable, but is sustainable over a course of decades, and it's not something that fizzles out in 5 years. So I think it's a critical aspect of.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Well, let's give a round of applause to this panel. It was a bit of the lightning round, and they held firm, so I appreciate that.